concepts to present to you. Our sense is that this first section creates synergies, promote the diversity of the global youth movement, that this section really represents the forward movement that we're trying to make internally in how we work. And so we have a sense that we need to articulate more here. We want to articulate our vision and some really concrete methodologies for and suggestions for how we can help the membership of ICMYO feel connected to ICMYO and understand how they can use this process most effectively and how they can become a part of the process. So that's our intention within this section.
That's quite complete.
Okay, so we'll move on to our ideas. We kind of divided ICMYO into two main streams. We said that, of course, advocacy is really key for ICMYO. It's why we come together. We want to have a better influence on UN processes. But it's not enough on its own, actually. A lot of organizations aren't doing a lot of advocacy work, so then don't feel their place in ICMYO. And we realize that that's partly because we're lacking this ICMYO community, this sense of ownership, of identity with ICMYO, and therefore a willingness to contribute more to it. So I'll start with the advocacy side. The main aims we kind of came up with were, of course, to have maximize the impact of our common advocacy work and to have some kind of very unbureaucratic system of doing that, because we didn't want to add extra pressure, extra requirements on organizations already doing advocacy work. The tools we came up with, the main tool is to develop real policy, to talk about content finally. That's something that ICMYO hasn't been doing very successfully. And I say that as somebody this is my third ICMYO meeting, so I feel I can criticize the process and myself in doing that. What we need is clear policies in order to have everybody's input into the ICMYO process. If we have common policy or common content, then of course we can also have any delegates that are at UN meetings representing the common positions, not necessarily representing the organizations, but somehow having a greater status for the things that they're saying there. Of course, to also coordinate the delegations or the individual delegates better, but also to pass information back more effectively. Not to have long reports, but just to have half a page. What were the key issues discussed at this UN meeting? What were the key things that youth were pushing towards? And maybe even during a meeting to have, does anyone else want to sign on to this document, this policy that we have produced as youth delegates here at this process? Then on the ICMYO community side, we felt that we couldn't do effective advocacy without an effective ICMYO community. So we talked a lot for a long time about ownership and connection to ICMYO and organizational development. So we really wanted to make sure we had something that people felt they wanted to contribute to. Some of the tools we came up with for that were to have some kind of working groups on topics, particular topics or particular processes. They wouldn't, of course, necessarily, we don't want to create more structures. What we want to create is an avenue or a way for people to communicate with each other. If they're already involved in processes, they're already following something, they're already doing some work on an issue, not to have extra structures for people to have to put more energy into. We need to think, and this is something I think we need to think about as a whole ICMYO, what do we do with this offer of a 3-year training course from the North-South Centre? This should be something that comes from the membership of ICMYO to really use that opportunity, because it's basically giving us a second opportunity to meet in a year. Of course, to use this ICMYO meeting. And then we talked a bit about developing a vision, longer-term objectives, somehow a 3-year or multi-year strategy or work plan, something that we all felt we could pick up and think, okay, yeah, this is what ICMYO is aiming towards, rather than coming to a meeting once a year and going home again. In this little bit up here, I've also put monitoring. We talked a bit about having kind of goals or targets that could then be monitored. Okay, how far are we achieving some of these things? What are the problems? Setting ourselves as organizations, but setting also for ICMYO as a whole. So that's our... You want to add anything? Anyone from the group? I missed something key?